we're about to get started. Very exciting. All the stuff's running now. I think we're firing on all cylinders. We're up on Instagram even. Hello, Instagram people. Hit the like and share the show right now. Give a thumbs up. Even you can take it back later, but it helps us promote the show. Let everybody know that we're live without having to make everybody click a notification bell like it's some kind of hippy-dippy rusty trombone cult. I won't do that to people. I will not. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm going to jump straight in because I'm very lucky to have back with me today Major Richard Ojeda, coming back from Europe, from his whirlwind tour. I think next up, you guys are just going to have a residency at the Sphere. It was a major tour of Europe. My first question to you, and I was so tempted to ask you before we came on the air, and again, welcome back. Everybody's excited for you to be here. When you came back, did you disengage from the news cycle a little bit while you were, I hope so, a little bit. And then when you came back, you're like, what? Even for Trump, like it has been off the chain bizarre lately. How'd it feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I had to, detach myself from politics and understand that, the only reason why I went at this late in the year is I was supposed to go in May. And then 2 days before I flew, the guy that I was going with got deathly ill and ended up in a hospital for a month. So it was either fly and go to Europe or lose, a ticket for $1,375. So I said, okay, I got to go. So I ended up leaving, and I didn't like being this late close to the election, but I had to. But I will tell you that, if you go over to Europe, you gotta detach yourself. But
yes,
I will tell you that I did speak to people all over, and not one person in Europe looks at Donald Trump like he is a leader. He's an embarrassment. I mean, they stick their hands over their face when you ask them, what are your thoughts about Donald Trump? And they're like, I can't believe that America falls for somebody like that. And that's how you can tell the education system is different in Europe than it is here in this country.
Right. Trump has this idea that we're a laughing stock, when I have a theory that every time he calls a world leader, they laugh in his face. So he thinks he's America. He thinks, right? He's convinced that they're laughing. When they laugh at him, they're laughing at all of us. It's very acute, I think. I think a lot of these guys are like, why the hell is this asshole calling me? Right?
It's just like what you said. Every single day, Donald Trump does something. Just the last couple of days. He's talked about Arnold Palmer's junk, and now he's talking about he wished that he had generals that like the Adolf Hitler had. And as a person who, I've been to Dachau concentration camp, I've been to Auschwitz, I've been to both those places twice. I've been to military cemeteries across Europe. And it's just like, are you kidding me? When you look at the atrocities that took place in those places right there, and you have Donald Trump willing to say these things that, we know that he uses, his ex-wives have always said that the only thing he ever read was speeches from Adolf Hitler, and the only book he kept by the bedside was Mein Kampf. Donald Trump uses Adolf Hitler's tactics, calling people vermin, repeating them 3 times so they'll stick. I mean, this guy is telling us, and now he literally says, I wish I had generals like Adolf Hitler had. Understand this. And I ask anybody here that is listening to what we're saying here.
Yeah.
There's a movie. It's called Conspiracy. And you can find it on HBO Max. It's called Conspiracy. And it's all about the gathering of about maybe 15 to 18 people in one location where they can basically come up with the final solution. Yeah. Now, in the beginning of this, you don't realize, but the final solution is about them having that conversation during that dinner that led to, okay, everybody needs to send as many as you can to this location, this location, to this location, where they will be exterminated. Yeah. It talks about, well, if a German is married to a Jewish woman and they have a child, what do we do with the child? And in the end, it literally basically says, okay, everybody's going to be sent to these locations, and that's where they're going to be dealt with. And when you see things like that, and this is historically accurate stuff.
Right. It's from the notes of the actual meetings that they had. And the final solution part of it was not only just we're going to kill the Jews and we're going to kill all the mentally and physically defective people amongst us and all the gays and anybody even gay adjacent to a certain degree, I would guess, depending on what kind of shows they wanted in the beer halls, honestly. But all those people would be dealt with in the most efficient way possible. One of the most grotesque things about it isn't just this kind of blatant these people have to die idea, because that's horrifying on its own. But what they worked on was, how do we do this with as little cost to us as possible? The lowest amount of resources, the cleanest and most efficient system, effectively setting up slaughterhouses for all these people, and how to, so that they could save as much energy and personnel and stuff for the war effort. And one of the things they came to was effectively enslaving these folks and working them to death, and then kill them when they're basically dead.
Yeah. Look, have you ever been to Auschwitz or Dachau?
No, I have not.
Let me tell you something. When you go to these places, and a person actually said, "I can't believe you went there. Shame on you." Look, this is history, and even though history has parts that are absolutely grotesque, you have to pay attention. But I'm going to tell you that, when you go into, last time I went to Auschwitz, I could only go into the big open area where they had the barracks and stuff. I didn't get to go through the area that was kind of like an in-processing, center where they took their luggage, they took all their stuff. There is a room that is about a 30-yard long room, and it has about a 10-foot pile all the way across one side of this room of human hair.
Yeah,
this is the hair that they shaved from. They took everything from these people. They told the Jewish people, "You've got 3 hours to grab all your stuff and get on this train." So everybody grabbed suitcases. And what do they put in their suitcases? They put their jewelry. They put all their most important stuff, because they didn't know if they was ever going to come back. Well, when they got to these places and they got off these trains, first and foremost, understand that every single child that got off of that train, every child, with the exception of if they were twins, went straight to the showers where they were gassed and killed. And
because they were useless. Because they didn't serve the function, like I was saying. They couldn't do any of the work. That's where the Schindler's List story comes from, is why he started gathering up children and saying that he needed them to make ammunition shells and piping because their arms were small. And so he used that as an excuse to save a bunch of kids. Specifically, but there's no use for them at all.
Yeah.
And again, the twins thing, that's another thing, because Mengele would experiment on them. He would test and see if they felt pain equally, if there was this kind of like Corsican brothers effect, and they would experiment on one twin, see if their pain threshold was higher than the other, and it's grotesque, just monstrous stuff.
Yeah, he would use actually syringes and try to squirt stuff. It would actually stick twins like in the eyes to try to change their eye color. I mean, when you go through places like this, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, the shoes, the suitcase, everything. And when you realize that, people were absolutely like motivated to do what they were doing, and how can an entire population go down this path? And this is how we know that this happens. And, it's absolutely horrible.
Right. It's also important to going back to your initial point about, and this is all about how Trump said he wanted generals like Hitler's, and he wanted ones like Kim Jong-un's. Now, Kim Jong-un, who is now sending troops, helping Russia by sending troops in, does the exact same thing to his own people. He systematically slaughters large groups of them. To if food stuffs start getting low, he doesn't just wait till they starve to death. He rounds them up and kills them. Like, that's happening on Earth right now, and it's not that dissimilar from how Hitler did things. So there's a lot of similarity between Kim Jong-un and how Hitler ran things. It's just that he doesn't have access to Chinese or Japanese people, which is where his primary target would be. But in terms of those generals you were talking about, when they organized this this setup to get they would take the goods, kill the kids first, all this kind of stuff. They would compartmentalize the people that they knew who would work in this place to the limit of their ability. So they would take the absolute psychopaths that they had in their society, that they would gack up on Pervitin, who would work long hours with numbed emotions, basically high on meth, and they would put them in charge of the actual killing. And then there were people they knew wouldn't pull the lever maybe eventually. After a while, they would start to sympathize. So they moved those people back and put them in the situation like everything's going to be fine. Just put your stuff over here and go over here and walk through this door. They had a semblance of humanity left. And so they would were able to bullshit themselves that nothing was going to happen. And so they kept them away from the furnaces and just put them in charge of like these people were going to summer camp. And then people who are slightly more sadistic than that, but not quite ready to pull the lever, they would shave the heads. They would hand everybody their regular clothing because they hated them, but they weren't ready to kill them. So the Germans compartmentalized each of these people to the extent of their lack of empathy or their psychopathy. It was a machine, and they worked on that for days. That movie you're talking about is from the notes where they got together. And Trump wants, just that simple thing alone should be massively. The fact that he had Hitler speeches on his nightstand is disqualifying. That part of his think of this idea that he goes this like cheap. He always says, think of this, think of this, think of this, think of this. It's this cheap shit hypnotism gag. And I've been looking for the book, but there was an 80s business book. There was like a little pamphlet on how to do business and how to manipulate and control people and how to spot a liar and stuff like that, whatever. And it's one of these like shitty little business books, part of which he ripped off for Art of the Deal. But in it was this whole thing about low-level party hypnotism, which is like, hey, think about this. What if we go to my house? Think about this. What if we get in my car? Think of this. What if we get in my car, go to my place? Think of this. What if we you get in my car, come to my place, have a drink? Well, think of this. And it's this weird thing that works with drunk people or people who are, just partying or out or their guard is down. And it's like, it's the equivalent of like, think of this. I'm trying to get a sofa in the back of my van, and I've got a broken arm. Think of this. What if you were to help me with my broken arm get this thing into the back of my van? That's the type of people who use that shit. And that's why Trump liked that stuff.
Well, and also, if you watch the movie Conspiracy, and once again, I please ask everybody that listens to us right now to do so, because it is factual because of the notes that we're finding. It basically all of these people that gather, like this is a general officer from Latvia, and it was the general officers that come up with the final solution. And let me tell you, when a person got off the train and they got sent to work, where it said, work will set you free. Understand that they fed those people about 3 months. About 3 months was the life expectancy of those that sent to work. Because the truth is that every single day, what they would get is like, they'd get like a cup of water with a couple carrots or something in it. That was their soup with bread. Yeah. And then they ate that again for lunchtime. And they worked them almost to death. And after about 3 months, they had lost all their body muscle. They were just skin and bones. And they were easy to just basically push towards the gas chamber. This was all horrible. This was ugly. This is how it was done. And that's why I tell people, when you go to places like that, take the time to go. If you go to Munich and you want to go spend a day in Oktoberfest, just know the 12 minutes north of Munich is Dachau concentration camp. Mm-hmm. And when you start to go to those places, it's important that we know the atrocities that took place. And when Donald Trump comes out and says that, I wish I had generals like Adolf Hitler, you're talking about generals that went ahead and made some of the worst decisions ever, that slaughtered almost an entire race of people. 10 million people were killed in that way. 6 million Jews were murdered. Once again, you had Russian spies. You had people from the LGBTQ community, anybody that had Down syndrome, all the children. Everybody was absolutely slaughtered. And, this is Donald Trump. This is him telling us exactly who he is, and people need to listen.
Right. And do you think it's a little bit telling that, we've often said, they always say a little bit of learning is a dangerous thing. They'll like the Republicans like to turn it into learning is a dangerous thing. But the original phrase is a little learning is a dangerous thing, meaning knowing just enough to be stupid, where you don't know the details of it. Ultimately, it was Hitler's generals who were trying to figure out a way to depose him in the end when he was clearly gacked out of his mind on Pervitin, had lost his function as far as his nervous system. His hands were shaking to the fact where people think he had Parkinson's, but he did not. He literally fried his nervous system with meth in the final months of the war. He was losing his mind. He was self-centered. And they were like, how do we snuff this dude without the SS killing us? So his generals were having a little mini final solution meeting of their own to try and kill this dude. And the question remains, did they, or did he kill himself and then they just burned his body so that he could go, or did they help him escape? These were the split stories from that time. But the big belief is that they actually did it, that they marched him and Eva Braun out into this ditch and shot him and then made it look like he committed suicide so that the SS would think that it wasn't on them, that he took his own life for Mother Germany or whatever, for the fatherland or the motherland.
Well, I will tell you the one thing that, got me was, of course, I went to Auschwitz, spent a whole day there. But like 2 days later, I actually climbed to the top of the eagle's nest. Mm-hmm. And we had to climb to the top of the eagle's nest because the whole mountain was closed down due to a snowstorm that come in. And it got so bad it knocked a couple of those things off the sides of the mountains that are specific to catch the snow and ice. Mm-hmm. So we had to walk to the top. And when we got up to the elevator was closed, so we had to keep on going to the top. And I'm going to tell you that when you get to the top of the eagle's nest and you look around, it's probably one of the most beautiful sights on the face of the earth. And what hit me was I thought to myself, like 2 days ago, I was in Auschwitz. Mm-hmm. And I watched the atrocities. Well, not watched them, but I looked at history that showed the atrocities that took place and how horrible these people were treated, and they were murdered and brutally just brutalized. Right. And then I thought to myself, it's a shame. It's a shame that Adolf Hitler lost his life in that bunker, because the truth is that he really deserved to be held accountable. Yeah, he deserved worse. To me, if he committed suicide, then he took the cowardly way out. But when I'm thinking to myself, here is a guy who gets to come up to a place like this and look at the most beautiful sight on the face of the earth. Wow! Literally, only a couple hours north, they were slaughtering people. Mm-hmm. And you think about it, it's like Adolf Hitler deserved to be brutalized. He should have been drugged through the friggin' streets of Germany, and basically he got the easy way out. And that's.
Well, again, to that point of the whole, Trump wishing he had generals like Hitler. Well, in many ways, that's exactly what he's forming. Are these people, to the extent that the Final Solution crowd are like that? No, they're kind of the Plato version of Hitler's generals, but they still have the same mentality that what he wants is, he wants his policy of get rid of the migrants, for example. Get them out of here. Just get them out. And you guys handle all the cruel, shitty parts, and I'll pretend I'm just doing it for the country. And that, in many ways, is what Hitler did. Hitler was a complete wuss when it came to actually doing the shit himself, just like Trump. He had these other people who were far more psychotic, far more physically comfortable and emotionally and ethically comfortable with direct violence. These were sexual sadists. These were torturers, and these were, again, that group of generals that he had were all primed in many ways to be directly violent. They watched it. Those guys who were in that group went down and filled out how efficient is the killing. They checked, they ran this system. Yeah. He did not. He just yelled at everybody and they went out and did it. But in the process of doing it, they were directly engaged in the awful. So he could have this kind of, I'm just trying to get rid of the problem. It's like using Raid on bugs instead of hand squishing them each yourself. And that was the issue that's what Trump is to some degree looking for too. He's looking, I don't know how we get these people out. I don't want to deal with the bullshit about separating families and pulling a kid out of a woman's arms and that stuff that he brings up occasionally when they talk about won't it be difficult to do this. He's like, you could tell he doesn't want to have any interest. It's going to be ugly, but you got to do it. Which is what he means. That's why he wants those generals like Hitler's. That's what he wants. He wants those people to work that shit out. I don't want to hear about that shit. I don't care anyway. Just get him the fuck out of here.
And Stephen Miller is one of the guys that would absolutely move them. No, Stephen Miller was the one that basically come down with the thing that, yes, we're going to take the child from the mother that's suckling on her breast and stick it in a cage. Let me tell you something. When 9/11 happened, there were people that were of the Muslim faith in this country that were assaulted, not because they had anything to do with it, but because it's like there's sometimes
they get blamed. Yeah.
When you talk bad enough about an organization or a group of people, some people start to believe that. The poorly educated. Let me tell you something. Every single neo-Nazi that is in the United States of America, the moment that Donald Trump said, "I wish I had generals like Adolf Hitler's," let me tell you, if they wasn't already on the Trump train, they are now.
They cheer, right?
This is, and that's why it's important that people know. You realize what happened to Germany. What happened to Germany when all this come crashing down? When finally accountability came to Germany. I mean, it destroyed Germany.
Yes.
I mean, to this day, let me tell you something. When you are in Germany and you are anywhere that's a museum and they have something that deals with the Nazi, era, you're not even allowed to take your phone and take a photograph of that. They do not tolerate anything like that. In Germany, if you think you're going to run around waving a daggone swastika, you're going to get your ass handed to you.
Right.
And that's what gets me is today, people don't realize your grandfathers and great-grandfathers fought the damn Nazi regime. Yeah. And if they could go back today and all of a sudden wake up and be 30 years old, every one of those World War II veterans would go kick the dog shit out of anybody in America wanting to wave a daggone swastika. Right. Because they know what happens. They know how that ended. And the last thing we need is for that to happen to the United States of America. Agreed. And it's a shame that we're down this path.
Yeah. Well, and again, I believe, and this kind of dovetails into another thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you might have been you were away during part of this, but is that what we have right now, especially with social media, and I think Twitter is the prime example of this, is this exaggerated support structure that some accounts get over others. That there's this idea that there's a lot of fake followers, bots, and all this kind of stuff elevating in the algorithm, elevating certain content and downplaying other content. When all the Republicans were claiming that they were being shadow banned and stuff when they were just unpopular, and they couldn't grasp that, because I go to these rallies, I see the same fucking people at all the rallies, but it's full. So it must be that the whole country, this feels, like, instead of, no, asshole, you're just deadheading around the country with the same dumb motherfuckers. You're not expanding this. This isn't a big crowd. It's just virulent and psychotic and cultish. So that's why the front row Joes became the first 4 front rows of these places, because these people just kept going to, place after place. And again, these people can only vote in one state once. And yet they seem to think, oh, we've got to look at all these people in Philadelphia. Like, they're the same people that were in fucking West Virginia, that were in Florida, that were in Texas. It's the same motherfuckers. Anyway, so some accounts getting this artificial boost. And people are like, Jesus Christ, this is a popular channel. People are watching this. There's a lot of, and then you're like, on one hand, it turns out to be bots and elevated, like Russell Brand and Rusty Trombone and all those sites. But they all get this kind of weird support structure, this sort of, and it's largely Russian, right? The Russian money that flowed into the country, and especially in that tenant media deal that just got caught, which involved Benny Johnson and Dave Rubles and Tim Pool. And, that story broke. I don't know if you were away or at the tail end of that as it started rolling. But there's this idea that the Nazis on Twitter, for example, get a lot more play and lift from the algorithm and from bots than they actually deserve, right? If they had natural clicks, they wouldn't even fucking chart, right? We wouldn't be talking about them because it would never actually reach a level where we would even see it in our feed. But thanks to Elon Musk's algorithm and bots in a bunch of these farms, some of them in Macedonia, some of them in India, Iran. I don't know if people know this. Iran has these giant watch farms just like India and China do that you can buy views for your videos, right? Iran has one of the most, like, one of the biggest setups. I have a friend who works on one of these internet sites, just like doing some editing and whatnot. And apparently, you know that slap fighting thing that they have on Rumble, like that slap contest? Okay. That nobody fucking watches. Okay. If you look at their, you can look at the kind of viewership on that. If you peek at that, it's all in Iran. All of it. It's all Iran. These and they fly over and they're having this thing in Dubai or Abu Dhabi where they're having one of these slap fight contests, and it's basically just rich assholes watching broke rednecks smack each other. It is such like the sport of kings with no clothes, with emperors with no clothes. It's fucking gross. But the bot farm in Iran is primarily where Rumble gets all of its views. Like 60 to 80% of the views that Rumble gets come from bot farms in Iran. Wow. For all of its programming. The Dan Bongholio show, Rusty Trombone's show, the slap fighting, their fucking cat videos, whatever the fuck they post on Rumble, 60% of it is just bot farms in Iran watching their videos just on a crank. Wow. Like that. And yeah, and it makes people go, how are all these Nazis and assholes getting all this thing and what's happening to our country? I'm here to tell you, nothing. The vast majority of people in this country, the even the Trump voters don't see half this shit because they're not on social media as much as we are. And so they don't even register that these accounts are aligning with Trump or even see these stories about him, with Hitler speeches or any of this stuff. They just watch the nightly news version of a chunk of stuff where they're like, he wants to lower taxes. Like, that's all they see.
Well, to me, I look at, the polling and stuff like that comes out that, like, I'm sorry, but when I hear like, oh, Newsmax has a poll. Well, who's calling into that poll? Right. The people that watch Newsmax. So to me, the polling is kind of like, it's definitely hit or miss. But like Elon Musk was recently, they said Elon Musk said, if Donald Trump doesn't win, I'm fucked. Right. If Donald Trump doesn't win. I mean, at the end of the day, good. I hope he doesn't win, and I hope you're fucked because once again, this is a guy who, to me, he shouldn't be allowed to play politics the way he's playing politics.
Right.
He's using, he took over a social media platform. And make no mistake about it, a lot of people said, get off there. I'm still on there. Because I still say what I say. I mean, yes. I rip Elon Musk a new ass every damn time I get on there. And I don't care. Am I going to wake up one day and find out that my account's been removed? Probably. But at the end of the day, I'm going to continue doing it. But, these are not people that care about America.
Agreed. I also think that after this election, when Kamala wins, the usership of Twitter is going to drop off a fucking cliff. Because there's no right now. I think we're still like it. For all that other site being called Rumble, the rumbling goes on Twitter. It's a bunch of like our side fighting their side directly and not being afraid to shit talk. It's a shit posting site right now, and that's what it's for. And it's still got news accounts on it, so you can get some quicker news posts. But, and it runs a little smoother than Threads in terms of what you can see in a feed. As far as trending stuff, it's just better designed. Threads will get an update and it will be basically what you see in your trending stuff on Twitter. The minute that happens, fucking done.
What gets me, though, is the whole thing about when the Republicans are in power, they absolutely push whatever the hell they want. They don't care about you, the person. When I was a senator in West Virginia and we fought the 9-day teacher strike, that we won, by the way. You know, I still to this day don't understand how we stood side by side with every teacher, every school service personnel. We got all the unions involved. We had 28,000 people down there at the Capitol every single day. The Republicans were absolutely livid. You know, it was my speech that started that, by the way. And let me tell you something. They hated my guts. I didn't give two shits. I didn't care. But we won that fight. We won that fight. And I'm going to tell you, it breaks my heart because right now, West Virginia and the legislature in West Virginia are about to break it off. And teachers and school service personnel and all government employees. Because now they're jacking up the insurance like by 40%. And, you know, all these teachers and school service personnel and all these government workers are absolutely going to be screwed over with this. The problem is that you've got nobody willing to stand up and fight for you because since 2018, where we won that fight, they have allowed every single Democrat that stood up there and fought for them the hardest to get beat by people that just said, Trump, Trump.
Yeah, right.
And you know what? Get ready for a shit sandwich, and I hope you got some Tic Tacs because I'm going to tell you, it's not looking good. And they don't give a shit. They have a super majority right now. You know, it was 23-12 plus the speaker. When I was there, it was only 12 Democrats. Today, there's only 3 Democrats.
Right.
So, yeah, good luck. Good luck. I hate it. I hate because I know a lot of good people are going to get shit on. But once again, when you allow the people that fight for you the hardest to get beat because of some 18-year-old kid that just graduated from high school and wants to play politics, and that's reality. That's happened a few times in West Virginia where good legislators got kicked to the curb because some child decided that they wanted to play politics.
Yeah, the Kyle Rittenhouse of legislation would come in. And again, one of the issues that we have with red state, especially the Senate in a red state or even the governorship, is that just like Kristi Noem and all these others, they know if they get in trouble, the federal government will ride in and save them. And even the pork that comes from Washington because of the size of the population of their state is enough to carry the whole fucking state. You look at Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all these, Wyoming, all these states with very small populations but a large landmass, many of which have military bases or other, sites for, storing nuclear fuel or any of that kind of shit. They automatically get a nest under them of federal support that's always there. It's like Alaska being able to hand out checks to people for the oil. So the governor of Alaska is always the most popular fucking governor in the country, no matter who they are, because they get to write their name on the fucking check, and everybody loves getting that check for the oil under their feet, right, is the idea. That all these other states, like Wyoming or Kristi Noem state, they know they can have 100% Republicans running the state senate there, be as socially conservative or fucked up as they want, because they know if anything goes to shit, if there's a natural disaster, a fucking volcano erupts, it doesn't matter. The federal government, the blue states, will roll in and save their population. That's what's happening in Georgia. It's what's happening in South Carolina. It's what's happening in northern Florida. Yep. And the only people who are running interference for that stuff, are other Republicans, are the fucking Rand Pauls of the world who can't wait to cut off funding for emergency stuff on behalf of insurance companies. Now, what I was saying before about that kind of. And this kind of, dovetails into what you're saying about like these youngins coming in and running for office just because they've shown that they will kneel to the throne of the orange Cheeto man. That tenant media thing happened, and all these guys got caught engaging in, basically being paid to do these $100,000 videos with no ask, no return. And they're all like, I had no idea. I was a victim. Benny Johnson and Dave Rubin and Tim Pool. Well, it turns out today, just so you know, sort of breaking news, that Tim Pool is quitting his show. Tim Pool is leaving the interwebs to start a family, to spend his days. He's going to open a coffee shop and get off the internet and find a girl, settle down, and have babies, and be an alpha male with a trad wife. And they're no longer going to have guests on Fridays, and they're going to stop. And this is 2 weeks before an election, this fucking site. And do you think if this Russian money hadn't been caught, do you think he'd be stopping 2 weeks before the election? You think he'd pull the fucking rug now?
Yeah.
Honestly.
He wouldn't.
No, of course not. So he has, I think the
show is over. But yeah, I think this might be the end. We are well off. It is not a financial thing. We make a lot of money, but piece by piece, the structure becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes impossible to manage. You know.
Oh, by the way, and what he means impossible to manage is he shit talks his staff all the time. They have, and I don't get this. They have like 30 fucking people working at Timcast. They have guests and that kind of stuff. Dude, you and I both run our streams when we do them by our fucking selves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so grateful to have like mods and people who are here and volunteer their time and enjoy doing it or whatever. But if they, the show isn't big enough where I could afford to pay mods anyways. Like Hassan refuses to. Let's be abundantly clear. Hassan makes millions of dollars. These big Marxist millionaires who, apparently is for everybody to live in a co-op except him. He's got a fucking $6 million house or whatever and doesn't pay his mods and any of that shit. Tim, we run these little kind of whoops, why does it say Terra on there? You're not Terra. Hold on one second. I got to turn this off and put the Majors logo on there. That was funny. Because I was going to show you.
I do have a guy that kind of works with me. His name's John DeBona, and he's phenomenal. Yeah. But once again, he would. I mean, I pay him, but he'd do it for free. He just loves being a part of it.
Yeah. Same with Can't Stop Lying, who helps pick the clips that I look at, so that I'm not covering clips that I've already seen because I watch enough of this shit. So having somebody who can farm that for me, or having Johnny Million on as a guest once a week that's permanent as a co-host on my radio show, those kind of things, but nowhere near like 30 fucking people. And maybe that's what it takes to have millions upon millions of views or whatever. But basically he constantly shits on his staff and says I'm the show, you're not the show, and I could fire you at any times, including his co-hosts and all this kind of stuff. He's just a dick. Right?
Douche. He's just a douche.
He's a total fucking douche. And now his big complaint is they're all lazy and they don't want to work extra hard for whatever the fuck beans he's throwing their way. So he's going to shut it down and so he can skateboard every day and go have babies. And it's just it's like, hey, wait a minute. So you can't have a job and a family at the same time? What the fuck? Yeah, it's just it's super fucking pitiful. And you and I do. We have families and lives and friends and all that kind of shit, and put a lot of time into stuff. And we don't have a 30-person staff making sure everything fucking, that throws all the switches for us as soon as we walk in, so you can just sit in a chair and blather, right?
What people don't realize is that, this has become who we are.
Yes.
We want to do our best to be able to educate as many people as possible, to try and flip folks. I love it when I have a good conversation with the Republican and we really get deep into the woods, and you start to see them start to go, wow, because once again, you're sitting here and you think that Donald Trump is the second coming of Christ, but then let's talk about the things that he has said. Let's talk about the things that he has done. And how does that even go anywhere near anything of the teachings of Jesus Christ? And sometimes you'll see people that'll start seeing that, But I mean, at the end of the day, people don't realize it takes a lot of time to put together a show. This is an hour long. This is probably more than an hour, folks. That's an entire day right there. I do 30 minutes every night from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. And it takes me at least 3 solid pages of notes to be able to get through a 30-minute, deal. And that's what people got to understand. But once again, this is who we are. We're going to do this no matter what. I don't care, if everybody's, what are you going to do if Donald Trump wins? I'm going to keep doing what I do.
Right.
You know, what can I do? Am I supposed to all of a sudden say, okay, everybody, from here on out, I'm going to do nothing but praise Donald Trump? No, I don't care.
Right.
I don't give a shit. You know, I dedicated 24 years of my life in service to this country. And I am looking at a man who wants to take our democracy from us and replace it with an authoritarian dictatorship. And a man who absolutely is the worst of the worst. What bothers me is that we have allowed this man to do what he has done, to get away with the things he has done. You know, the fact that, you know, judges said, well, we're going to go ahead and push it all off until after the election. You know, that's a win for Donald Trump. You know, ultimately, I believe that Donald Trump is going to be held accountable. I think he's going to lose.
Agreed.
Every day he does something more stupid. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, it breaks my heart that we are even in this category. Donald Trump shouldn't even be a thing. He is a buffoon. He is a loser. He is a liar. He's a cheat. Everything's a racist, a homophobic, Islamophobic. The guy is absolute trash. But we have to endure this bullshit because our judicial system, number one, has a bunch of corrupt people at the top of it. And number two, judges are too scared to actually hold him accountable for fear of what could happen to them and their families. And is that the way America is supposed to be?
No.
If a person goes out there and breaks the law, they should be held accountable.
That's right.
We can't hold them accountable because if we do, they're going to basically get on social media and they're going to try to rain down hellfire on all of us.
Or a maggot's going to show up on your fucking lawn with a gun. Because again, nobody is. One of the reasons why, even during their bullshit about the Biden crime family, blah blah blah, which I gotta say, one of my biggest joys is how much money, effort, and attention they spent on that horseshit on the Hunter Biden laptop stuff. Which, by the way, there is no Hunter Biden laptop. Feel free to at me. The idea that he's got this spidery, he's this doddering old man who can't put a sentence together, but also a master criminal in control of the largest criminal network of human trafficking and drugs and crime and whatever all over the world. Right at the same time, they put all this fucking effort into it, and then the Democrats, like Biden himself, was like, nah, she's going to take over from here. You guys have fun. Fuck you. And literally, they're just standing next to a bunch of unsold merch, essentially, going, fuck, the band just broke up. And nobody wants these T-shirts anymore because the singer punched the guitar player and everybody's mad at us, right? It's exactly that. So when you're talking, again, when you're all during that, there was really no fear that somebody on our side of the aisle was going to show up on fucking, I don't know, Stephen Miller's fucking lawn with an AR-15, right? That just doesn't come up. And I'm glad, because that's not how we fucking operate. Right. That's a genuine fear on the other side of this equation. Just look at the maggot that showed up in Cincinnati at the FBI office because the FBI served a warrant that was legal in Florida, for fuck's sake. Like, there's no way. It's like tracking serial killers. They don't have a direct connection to anything. They couldn't go, okay, we're going to have to watch for the offices around Mar-a-Lago in case some of these maggots show up and try to do something. This motherfucker attacked the office in Cincinnati. None of them are safe. Right. So so I think Merrick Garland and the people around him are perhaps too cautious. But what they're trying to do is chip away at his support, and knowing full well that he's going to lose because they see internal polling and all this kind of stuff in as well. And I want to show you guys real quick. This is the newest Monmouth poll. Harris is up by 3, 48-45. Extremely motivated voters are +5 for Harris. So and again, that chips off another number on him. That puts him at, instead of splitting relatively evenly or whatever, that drops a point off of his showing. And even that is bullshit. There's so much poll jacking going on because Rasmussen, again, is in his pocket. So anytime they're doing polling, they'll tell people, hey, if you get a poll, pick up the phone. If they absolutely say yes, they'll let people know, hey, they're going to be calling in your area. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone.
Yeah, and understand, I'm going to tell you all, I'm going to tell you, Donald Trump said about 40 days ago, he said that he would agree with the election results if he felt that they were fair. Folks, let me tell you something. If you don't realize, Donald Trump is already prepping the stage for him to say, we were robbed. That's what's going to happen. Let me tell you something. I don't give a shit what the polls say. Get to the polls.
Yes.
Make sure that you are registered. Let me tell you something. If you believe in voting on election day and not early, the day before election day, you might want to make a phone call to your county clerk to make sure that your polling station is going to be open. And if you are a person of color, you better make sure that your polling station is open.
Right.
Or open, because they did the exact same thing in Louisville, Kentucky, and shut down every polling station of color except for one. And at 8 o'clock at night, they were trying to shut it down. There were over 1,000 people standing outside, beating on the windows, saying that they wanted to vote. And a judge had to make them hold that open so they could vote. Make no mistake, you have no idea if the day before, the day you wake up for election, hell, your next door neighbor may know you're a Democrat and slashed your damn tires. You get out there and you vote. Make no mistake about it. The first votes that are going to be counted are going to be the in-person votes for election day. And we will probably see, once again, where Donald Trump gets a little bit of a lead.
Right.
And then here comes everything else at him. And that's what's probably going to happen. But make no mistake about it. Donald Trump will start screaming, close the polls on states where he is winning and keep counting on the states where he is losing.
Yep.
And he is absolutely going to tell everybody that it was stolen from him. At the end of the day, folks, Donald Trump is going to lose. The polling, once again, you got to go vote. You vote to make sure that that man's going to get held accountable. You vote to make sure that that man is not going to be allowed to fire at least 400 of our senior leaders in our military, generals and admirals, and replace them with people who, I don't know, would act kind of like Adolf Hitler's generals.
Right.
Because, folks, you better wake up.
And again, we are voting this time specifically. We are voting this time to restore women's rights in this country. Because right now, at this moment, this is not a, if he gets elected, I will harp on this until everybody's tired of fucking hearing it from me, or until we put this asshole in the rearview mirror, which I think we're going to do in 2 weeks' time, that women right now in this country, right now, not if he gets elected, not if he implements these policies. There's no if. It's happening right now. Women are second-class citizens in the United States of America. They can't. Any man in this country can put up a map of the United States and throw a dart and go to any state that it lands on, move there, and have the same rights he has in any other state. Women have to make a decision what state they want to live in based on what rights they want to have as a human being. Their own freedom, their own choice is not sacrosanct across the entire country. It is not guaranteed. There are dozens of states, literally dozens of states, where their rights are currently being curtailed. And and in the process, their menstrual cycles can be tracked. They can be charged with murder and manslaughter if they have an abortion, if they travel out of state for it, those kind of things. To live, they have to make that decision right fucking now.
Yeah, your ability, your freedoms, and Governor Walsh said this perfect. Your freedoms should not be dictated by where you are at geographically on a map in America. We got a bunch of countries out there that are absolute. You got your Iran, you got your Afghanistan. But this is the United States of America. We're supposed to be the freest country on the face of the earth. And what we have literally done, and once again, we now know that Donald Trump shut down the investigation into Brett Kavanaugh because Donald Trump wanted to make sure that he was one of the ones that was, placed in play so that they could take every single woman in this country's rights away. And oh, by the way, you have to know that there are still people on the Republican side that are also talking about challenging the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. You've got people talking about let's allow interracial relationships to be decided at the state level. Right. So you may be okay if you're living in California and you're married to somebody that isn't of the same race, creed, or color from you. But if you're married to somebody like that and you're in Alabama or you're in Mississippi, your marriage may become null and void. This is the kind of stuff that's happening.
This affects our military, in a big way, because if you're married to somebody or you're in the military yourself and they go, we're being transferred to this state, to a base here, you're being moved to a base, and you're being moved to a base in a state that has fewer rights, you have to observe the rights of that state. And Pinwiz in our chat said straight men, Hal, not all men. No, all men. because even gay men in this country have the right to get married in every state in the union. That is still law. They're going to try and get rid of it, but they haven't yet. Women's rights, they have gotten rid of. Believe me, they're going to try and get rid of gay marriage, just like they're trying to get rid of interracial marriage, but they haven't done it yet. Okay? That's an if. Right now, women have to make this choice, and gay men have all the protections of everyone else, and all these. There's certainly social discrimination and all that kind of stuff. That it has to do with policy and personality. But as far as the legal protections for men, they are sacrosanct across all states in the union. No matter what your sexual orientation is, it doesn't matter. Women, however, have fewer rights than men. Period. Right now, no pun intended.
And that's the thing is, if you think that they're not going to go after gay marriage, I mean, they're absolutely going to do that. The truth is, I think that what they did was they played their hands wrong. I think that the worst thing they could have ever done was say, we're going to basically do away with Roe v. Wade, because that right there fires up every single woman in this country. And I'm going to tell you, you look at the youth vote, the 18 to 24-year-old vote in this country that's female. It's absolutely, you got a couple Karens in there, but make no mistake about it, they have absolutely awakened the sleeping giant when they stole the women's right to make a decision on what to do with their body. And once again, like you said, they're going to go after everybody. I mean, Project 2025 is going to make, if you're taking care of your aging mothers and fathers, Project 2025 is going to screw you royally. I mean, that's the thing. People need to pay attention. People need to do some research. If you read the indictment from Jack Smith on page 8, Donald Trump basically texts people and says, make them riot. There's so many small details out there that people aren't paying attention to that you need to pay attention to.
Oh my God. So the Atlantic story that just came out, and we only got a couple of minutes left with the major, and then I've got Lev Parnas and Philip Ittner going to be joining me in the second hour to talk about what's going on in Ukraine and certainly the election coming up a little bit. Phil is in the country. He flew back to vote in person.
Awesome.
Yes. And so the Atlantic story that you were talking about earlier that talked about how Trump said he wanted generals like Hitler had. There's also another story in that one about this funeral cost that he was going to pay for a Hispanic service member, a Mexican American service member who had died. And Trump, in talking to the family, says, if you need help paying for the funeral, I'll help you out. I can't do it through the government. I'll do it. There's this whole conversation that he has about, I think the military will be taking care of it. Trump replied, good, they'll do a military. That's good. If you need help, I'll help you out. Have you offered to do that for other families before? That a reporter asked, he said, I have personally. I have to do it personally. I can't do it through government. So you've written checks for other families before this? I have, because some families need help. Maybe you don't need help from a financial standpoint. I have no idea what. I just think it's horrific, the thing that happened. If you need help, I'll be there to help you. Okay, first of all, that's not true. He didn't write checks to other families. That's just bullshit. For the record. Like, nonsense. Okay, so they held a public memorial service. 5 months later, Secretary of the Army Ryan McCarthy announced the results of an investigation, cited leadership failures, blah, blah, blah. In an Oval Office meeting, they gathered to discuss a non-security issue. According to attendees, he asked if somebody had where was it? I want to go. Kash Patel, at a certain point, according to people presented at the meeting, Trump asked, did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost? When they're talking about that thing. And according to attendees, the contemporaneous notes of the meeting taken by a participant, an aide answered, yes, we received a bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. He turned to his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and issued an order. Don't pay it. Later that day, he was still agitated. Can you believe it? He said, according to a witness, fucking people trying to rip me off.
Understand that one of the reasons why it was so expensive is because this was a national it was a national event, but this was in the eyes of the country. You had people from all over that came to pay their respects to this young girl who was killed. But once again, it doesn't take $60,000 to bury a Mexican.
Right.
I mean, once again, that right there tells you.
A fucking Mexican, like just straight up derision. And I like just the holy shit. This sounds like something we would find out Lyndon Johnson said or something like that back in or McCarthy said back in the fucking 50s and 60s or some shit. This sounds like something a Southern senator said, in a cloakroom in the fucking 50s. It's so awful. And again, it's hideous. So Kawam, the family attorney, told the reporter who wrote this, she sent the bill to the White House, but no money was ever received by the family from Trump. So if Trump wants to dispute that he said that, because he absolutely will, it doesn't matter. Because he said to a reporter and to the family in front of these reporters that he was going to help them out, and they never got a fucking dime. Trump can't even run a charity in the state of New York because they do not trust any member of his family not to steal from that charity. And remember, Eric stole from St. Jude's, created a skimming system where they would get a percentage of all the money that was taken in, which they did not have to do. There was no, there was no infrastructure to his fucking charity. They could have had people walking around with credit card readers at any of these things, giving directly to St. Jude with no fucking cost whatsoever. And they made like the other St. Jude the charity money the money they raised ponied up to pay for Trump's properties, which they would have these things at to basically draw these fucking rich people to these gatherings so they could black tie it around and that kind of stuff. And then they would charge the fucking charity for his own property and then still call it his charity. I would argue that if it's your charity and it's your property, the very least you're doing is donating the fucking facility for the night, the ballroom, the parking structure, the staff. I would argue you could even pay the staff, and that would make sense. But like this level of it was so disgusting. So whether he tries to fight the idea, and I see Lev coming in the background. Welcome, Lev. We'll get to you in just a second, my friend. But this idea, this line, that Elon Musk is doing everything he can to keep this line from trending all over fucking Twitter right now. And it doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. The idea, the fact that Trump said it, that there were contemporaneous notes of him having said it. Mark fucking Meadows, who has turned state's evidence in the Georgia case and in more than likely the Jan 6 case, has notes of his own, can testify absolutely and will. When they drag Mark Meadows in front of a fucking to go, hey, I want to get to the idea of the character involved. There's a story, can you confirm or deny that he said this or whatever? At some point in a deposition or something, he's going to be asked to gauge whether he can tell the fucking truth or not, whether or not he was standing there when Trump yelled at him and said, don't pay it. Can you believe it? These fucking people trying to rip me off. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. That Donald Trump said that to him, and at some point under oath, somebody's going to ask Mark Meadows if that is true, and there are multiple people who will line up to go, fucking A right it was. Phil is here as well. I want to thank the Major for joining us, and welcome back from Europe, my friend. Thank you for joining me today and telling us about your trip and all that stuff. I want to and what's your current schedule now that you're back? For your live stream?
8:30 Eastern Standard Time every night on YouTube and Facebook, Ojeda Live. Let me also say, first off, Phil, great to see you, man. Good to be back here. And Lev, I don't know if you know this, but I share everything you post on Twitter. Lev is awesome, man. You're a hero. You're a hero to this nation, man. That's a fact.
That's right.
God bless you, my brother. God
Absolutely.
Bless you. And thank you for your service. Thank you so much, Major. Thank you.
Awesome.
God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Major. We'll see you again. Awesome. Okay. Now I get to pop these guys in and do this real quick. Yeah.
Hi, Lev. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Hal. How are you, my brother? How are you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Jet lag.
Phil?
Jet lag
Yeah.
like crazy.
Yep. And there we go. And we'll pop in Phil in here. And then it's so great to have both of you guys on here because I have been from the very beginning and pop, there he is. Okay, good. All right. So now everybody's up and it's excellent. First of all, Lev, I don't know if you noticed, like I make a little icon for everybody when I have him on as a guest. And Lev's is the cover of his book, Shadow Diplomacy, right there in the little corner of that thing. It's his book. Please check it out. There's so many details of the story that we all heard, tidbits of in the news or bits of in an interview here and there. But there's so much depth to what happened that it's super crucial. It's a great book. Pick it up. There's a lot of OMFG moments in that book where you're just like, it's incredible to know that a lot of this happened. And again, I was just talking, Phil, and I don't know how much you heard of this as well. By the way, Phil has a podcast / video vlogcast show. We'll find a real name for it eventually. Vlogcast, because it's live. It's on video on YouTube at his Philip Ittner's channel called On the Edge. But he's back in America to vote, which is fucking great. Just who wants to do it in person. And I understand that feeling, like where you're like, I'm voting in person. I'm gonna I have a mail-in ballot because I'm always on the road, so I always request a mail-in ballot no matter what, so that I can always vote. But when it arrives, most of the time I go to one of the offices and I stand in line and I put it in myself. Like I'm like there. I feel like I'm putting a bank deposit.
Now I'm participating. I am actually doing this.
Yeah,
I'm so jealous of you guys because of my involvement in this whole caper with Trump. Took away my my right to vote, and it's like probably one of the most hardest things that I have to go through right now, watching this happen and not being able to vote. But I encourage and God bless.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know perfectly well, Lev. That's why folks are fighting as hard as they are back in Ukraine. So I felt like I would have done this anyhow, but the example that they're showing me for fighting for the right to cast your ballot and to determine your own future, they're setting an example. So I took away some time and I came and I'm gonna put my ballot, and I'm registered in Michigan as well. So.
Oh, beautiful. Right. That's a good one.
Yeah, super important. And Lev just had was the subject of Rachel Maddow's company's first documentary. From Russia with Lev, I think that's proper. Yeah. Which is a great old school Bond title reference, which I particularly enjoyed. Yesterday, Rudy Giuliani was apparently knocked on all of 6 doors in a Philadelphia suburb or something like that, like just effectively scaring people into not leaving their house. I think people thought it was early Halloween, but first of all, let's catch up with you right now. Since you can't vote, I think you are doing a lot to motivate people to vote. And making people aware of what they're voting both for and against. What's your current experience with that and what you have going on in that regard? And then I want to talk to you both about Ukraine as well.
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to definitely thank Rachel Maddow, Billy Corbin, Alfred Spellman. I mean, the work they did with that movie was just tremendous. I think they were able to incorporate, even though it only takes a little piece of the actual conspiracy and corruption that was going on in Trump world, which the book goes into detail. But the way they were able to do the movie was to take the regular person and basically let them remind them of how corrupt Donald Trump was. And you can see in his own words. And that's the important part, where it's one thing hearing it, but one thing seeing Donald Trump in his own words saying, get rid of the ambassador or sending me to Ukraine. And that's what I think the movie brought out. And it's been, I've been having a lot of success with that. A lot of people that have been been able to watch the movie that have been on the fringe, or even, you know, hardcore Trumpers that I'm around after watching the movie have told me, I can't believe this, you know, what I saw and this really happened. And, you know, it's been changing some minds. So, you know, I'm just blessed that it came out when it did, because like I said, every vote counts. And I think it made a difference in a lot of people's mind that were able to see the movie. And me, myself, right now, because I can't vote, I'm doing everything possible to be able to get the word out, to make sure people vote, and make sure people, before they vote, they really get to understand who Donald Trump is, because it's not about policies, guys. This is one election that it's about our democracy, about making sure we don't get another type of a Hitler, another type of a dictator, another type of a Putin into office to run the most powerful country in the world, because that would be the tragedy of history, the way it would be written. So that's the most important part. So this weekend, Sunday, I'm going to be in Las Vegas. That's an important battleground state. We're going to be doing a couple of days events there. I'll be doing, we're going to screen the movie. We're going to do some appearances. I'm going to do some speaking arrangements. I just did a speaking arrangement at actually Miami University in front of 300 students, and it was amazing to see the reception there. And when we started the conversation, about 30% of them were Trump voters. We raised hands to see who was where. By the time we were done, after 2-hour Q&A conversation going over what they had in mind, most of the majority, about 99% of the class voted to, you know, that they were going to vote for Kamala Harris. So I think the more we get the word out, the more we speak to people. I think the biggest problem is the misinformation and disinformation that's been pushed through these, you know, Fox News channels, through these corrupt congressmen, senators, and all of these right-wing media agendas that was really promoted by Russia and only, you know. So that's the most important thing.
I think that's magnificent. Go ahead, Phil.
I think it's great. What I have always appreciated about Rachel is that she has kept the spotlight on the fact that we are under attack by Moscow. And you know, having just come from Ukraine and Lev as a Ukrainian American, I mean, we have the same fight. Because you know, Russia's infiltration into our body politic. One of the great things that we discussed when I interviewed Lev on our show and On the Edge was the fact that Americans need to wake up to the fact that there are active measures being performed by Russia in information warfare. An information warfare campaign that Trump is 100% on board with. He's part of the problem. He's the hand grenade that Vladimir Putin threw into our culture, into our country, and we did. And you know, the initial damage was bad enough, but then the KGB, you know, which, you know, Putin is always going to be a KGB man. They know enough. They know enough to just push the thing, and it'll start momentum, and inertia will start of its own. But we are under attack by Russia. We better wake up to it. So,
and the scary part, if I may, guys, which is really scary, they're now doing it completely in plain sight, open view. Before in 2016, you have to understand, Putin and Trump did not have a relationship in 2016-17. Trump was just a useful idiot in Putin's game of world politics. But in this period of time, they formed a relationship, and now we hear that they've been speaking over 7 times privately since he's left office. Trump has met with Viktor Orban several times in Mar-a-Lago, and that after Viktor Orban went directly to
who's
me
basically a courier.
I mean, exactly. And these conversations are not being reported back to our governmental authorities.
Right.
I mean, that is a crime of its own. I mean, I think
it's a violation of the Logan Act. Yes.
You know, and Trump, the Logan Act. Remember, Trump was the first one that tried to go after John Kerry when Kerry was talking with Iran back before he left to try to negotiate a deal. Trump tried to go after him for the Logan Act, and now he's doing it, and that's being overlooked. And I don't know why right now. And that's the crazy part, you know, is because Trump has polarized this whole DOJ thing. They're scared to charge him with more stuff. And he's now in open sight doing more criminal activity right in open sight. And I mean, this is something, 7 times. And just think about it. Not only did he not report it, but it was reported that he didn't even have his own assistants in there. These were private one-on-one conversations. There's a purpose to that. We all understand the brain mentality and why they were. So I mean, that's the scariest part of all. They're doing it in open plain sight, and nobody's saying anything about that.
There's also a reason why they do it in the United States. Why, Trump doesn't fly out of the country for a lot of reasons. But one of the things is that he operates under the protections of the rules that the FBI can engage in. Whereas if he was in a foreign leader's, environment, the CIA could plant bugs and do that kind of stuff that could actually capture this in the same way that I believe they ultimately did. They started becoming more and more aware of the private conversations he was having. And when Trump says they spied on my campaign, they absolutely did not. They were spying on Vladimir Putin and his handlers and his workers, and he got swept up in that because if you call a drug dealer 20 fucking times, the 19th time the DEA is going to go, what's this 212 number, right? They're going to, that's not them spying on you. They're like, this is not a wrong number. He's not calling and hanging up because he thinks he's calling his brother Bernie. This is not a mistake. This is on purpose. And now, but meeting in Mar-a-Lago, he views it effectively as a safe site, and it is in a lot of ways. He can have these meetings, and because of the rules of the FBI and eavesdropping and the like, there may be, because of the superseding indictment around the Cannon case and the J6 case, and because he's under investigation as insurrectionist, there very well may be bugs in Mar-a-Lago that are completely justified. I mean, you can get a warrant. You can do it with the mob. You can fucking do it with the mob. He's a private citizen. There was no reason whatsoever that under both of those cases, both the documents case and Jan 6, that you could not justify eavesdropping on somebody like that. Their phones, their devices.
First of all, let me tell you, these guys are professionals. Even back then when we were doing it, there's a reason why we used the BLT room on the second floor, because Junior told me that was swept once a week for bugs. That was back then. And now I'm sure after Mar-a-Lago got invaded, and I'm sure after, with the Secret Service, I'm sure they're extremely countermeasures of making sure that every room, wherever he's speaking to. Second of all, he really doesn't use the telephone. His phone's like he doesn't email. He's not that type of a. That's why the Viktor Orban, I think, is even more crucial than the conversations, because on the phone, Trump understands that those conversations are being definitely listened to. I know from my own experience, there's agencies out there that even were listening to my conversations that were then blacked out in my indictment that I couldn't see. That basically they have technology that's voice recognition, that whenever you speak, wherever it is over the phone, the CIA and NSA, they're able to pick up on that and they record it. They're not able to use it, but they use it for, terrorist acts and stuff like that, spying out. So Trump knows all of those because he was president of the United States.
He briefed on it,
So the calls, which is not the biggest thing I'm concerned about. Where I'm more concerned about is the actual meetings he's having with Viktor Orban, because you have to understand, for Viktor Orban, meets with Vladimir Putin. Then he flies over, meets with Donald Trump. They both come out and they make statements about how Putin loves Trump, how he wants him to be in office, basically talking to the world in open. Those conversations that Trump and Orban are having behind closed doors, those are the ones I'm concerned about, because after that, Orban sees Putin. And that is more dangerous than even the phone calls that he's having.
Right. Well, they had, and I'm sure Phil has questions for you as well. So feel free if you want. Sure. But one of the things that struck me about the indictment about the documents case was there were multiple cases where Trump would take Walt Nauda's phone or an assistant's phone, just somebody else there, and he would send a text to somebody on their phone so that it would never come from his phone, with his obvious awareness that now that he's no longer president, he doesn't have the special coverage. And so when he's texting somebody, the weird idea that he's that stupid that he thinks that they don't have Walt Nauda's phone easier than they would have his is a little weird too. So he is a bit slapdash in how they handle it. And even though Don Jr. might go, they sweep it once a week, and he means the Secret Service, I think obviously for they'll do a good job at what they're doing. That doesn't mean that.
Oh no, they have their own guys also. I mean, these guys. We had, they'd come in, they there with wands and check and not even Secret Service.
But do you think he's putting his own back in there? You know, because if he learned a lesson from Epstein, it's get dirt on everybody. And so I feel like he lets the Secret Service come through, sweep stuff, has his own guys come through, sweep it because he doesn't trust the Secret Service guys because he thinks they're putting something in because he's a paranoid asshole. And then he has his own shit put in to listen in on his guys and go, yeah, you know, I sweep it, the Secret Service, we're all cool. When he's really recording his shit so that in case he needs backup, I mean, I don't know that Trump's that smart, but maybe Miller is, you know what I mean? Like the guys around him are that fucking paranoid.
See, the problem with that is with Trump, they're scared to record anything because you don't know what he's going to say.
Right.
He's so fucking off the wall that they're scared that what he's going to say more than what anybody else is going to say. So, I mean, yes, in the real world, that would probably be, but with Trump, they're scared to have him on tape.
Well, yeah, he doesn't even use email, right?
He already have.
Yeah. I mean, that's Atlantic story I was talking about before you guys came on with, where he had told Mark Meadows, it doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. Like, this is how he talks. And if you look at how he's increasingly unhinged in how he's voicing stuff, even at this story about I wish I had generals like Hitler's hadn't come out in that Atlantic story, he's this close to saying it on the fucking campaign trail. Like, he's slipping.
He'll say it, and he'll excuse it by saying that they listen to their leader, and that's what we need. We need people. I already see some of his trolls going out on basically justifying it, saying that we need generals that are going to follow orders and not they're going to doubt the president because the president is there to give orders and they're not there to oversee what order they are given. They're already trying to turn it into that. Yeah, but I mean, look, everything you see with him is compared to what Hitler did, and it's not just Hitler; it's being a dictator, guys. Donald Trump doesn't take no for an answer. If Donald Trump wants right now to have a parade of tanks go down Pennsylvania Avenue, he does not want to go through the procedures of Congress, get approval, get it done, and for somebody to tell him no. That's what the problem is. Donald Trump wants to do what he wants to do, and the only way he could get it done is when he was a regular citizen, is to be like a mob boss, because mobsters act like that. When he got into politics, it's being a dictator. So he's just moving a step further, but it's the same mentality of getting what you want, being that spoiled brat that he grew up where he can't get no for an answer. It's like when you're a child and you bang, yes, I want this. That's what Donald Trump is. But he's a 78-year-old big child that doesn't take no and is playing within a dangerous game with world politics.
Right. I know I have another question on that.
I'll tell you
go ahead, Phil.
His whole stuff of I can end the Russia-Ukraine war, in a day is him basically saying, I'm going to call both of these guys and give them an ultimatum. Now, I'm sure the ultimatum he delivers to Putin will be wrapped in a nice little bow, and have, it'll be, packaged beautifully, and he'll be very, subservient to Putin when he delivers it. To Zelensky, he's basically going to go and say, surrender. And what I don't think Trump understands.
I'll give you guys, without interrupting, I'm sorry, but I'll give you a little inside news that.
No, go ahead.
So I've been a part of, close intimately, and when Zelensky was down here in New York before he went to see Trump, and there, I have a lot of friends on both sides still in both camps that are still, I talk very close. Trump already gave that message to Zelensky. Trump's message already is that basically he needs the dying to stop, that whatever land that they took, that they basically, it's Russian-speaking land, that's going to, and that's why Zelensky raised, the position he put Zelensky and the Ukrainian in is disgusting. It's just, to have them, and he did that. One of the reasons he did was the response to the movie. Because if you recall, the first thing when Zelensky walked in there, he said, I did nothing wrong. The impeachment was a hoax, because the movie was about the impeachment. And he brought Zelensky on the world stage to basically validate that, to basically say, well, if I did something wrong, why doesn't Zelensky come do it? So he put it, it's a disgusting move what he did. Right. But all the players know what's already intact. I mean, that's why take a look. I mean, even recently, look how quiet Putin has become. You don't hear any, like the past couple of weeks, it's been relatively quiet before the storm, that type of a feeling. No, Phil, you haven't seen anything really major happening.
Yeah.
You haven't seen any response from Putin with the Ukrainians are still controlling parts of Russia. There has not been, so there's been a lot of, things happening right now that is coming to this November 5th date that, they're watching very carefully, because I truly.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that Trump doesn't understand, and frankly, it's something that a lot of people in the United States don't understand, especially in the hardliner GOP. They think that if they just go over and say to Zelensky, "You're going to have to accept this deal," that he's just going to go, "Okay, well, I got no choice."
Right.
He doesn't understand. They don't understand, and Trump doesn't understand the situation. If Zelensky were to do that, he would be kicked out of office. Well, he would be. He can't, and it's also not even a point, because he's not going to say yes to that. Zelensky will. He's fighting Putin. He was threatening. Putin was going to march into the presidential palace and kill him.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's already contingency.
Give me a break.
And not only that,
Zelensky's got bigger stones than that.
Absolutely, and not only that, what Trump doesn't understand, and a lot of the GOP, that there's already contingency plans being talked about between the European NATO countries, what they're going to, because they are not going to. They're still going to support Ukraine, because Trump doesn't understand countries like Germany, France, Poland, all of these countries in no way are going to allow Russia just to trample over all of that. So it's not as easy. But again, this is Donald Trump, pure Donald Trump. He lies. He tells people what he thinks they want to hear. He doesn't tell you a solution, how he's going to do it. He doesn't have a solution to do anything. He just tells you if he's going to. I'll give you an example.
Fix it so
Tomorrow
quickly.
Yeah. If he has a rally in Alabama tomorrow and they have a problem with the interstate highway, he's going to promise them on day one when he goes into office, that's the first thing he's going to do is fix their highway. When he's going to be in Pennsylvania, the first thing he's going to do is fix their bridges. So if you take a look at all his promises, they're all fake, because at the end of the day, what people don't even realize, that Donald Trump is so hated inside their own parties. Mega is very small when it comes to the Senate or the House. And for any president to be able to pass any law, to be able to do any of these things that he's trying to promise, he needs the support of Congress, Senate to be able to pass these things. He doesn't have no support of any of that. And the people that he would put in place to run these things, it would be just a revenge tour of mayhem until literally he would probably have to be taken out with the 25th Act. But again, he's never going to get there.
And then we advance.
Yeah, and that's it. But I truly believe that Kamala and Walz are going to trample over him. I think the American public is going to come out, and this is not even going to be close. I think they're going to come out, and we're going to show him, and so this way the whole world sees that we are united, and we're against tyrants, we're against dictators, and I think that's what's really going to happen. I think we're underestimating, these polls are underestimating the past maybe 2-3 young generations that were 12 years old, because I saw it myself yesterday when I was giving a speech at Miami University in front of 300 students, and I saw their reactions. A lot of these kids were like 12, 13 years old when Trump was in office in 2016. They grew up with all of this nonsense, seeing this of everything transpire, and these votes are not taken into consideration in the polls. These are all kids that turned 18, 19, 20 years old that are now eager to go out there and vote because of what they're seeing. And we've never had this, I think, get out the young vote as we're seeing now happen, and I think that's going to make a big difference.
Agreed. There's also a 1-to-1, per capita growth that you see where there was a dip in, like, millennials are a larger generation than the Gen Y or whatever. So they're coming in to actually vote. There'll be a slight bump in actual people. And to anyone, by the way, who would think they can trust Putin or even Trump acting like Putin, I would just remind them of the Operation Storm 333 in Afghanistan. If you're a world leader and you think you can trust that you'll be handed power at some point, the Tajbek palace assault in Afghanistan is like one of the most obvious. Like, literally the leader of Afghanistan at that time was like, oh, the Russians are coming to help me, and they surrounded the place. They poisoned him and everybody at his dinner party so they'd be asleep when they got killed. He only survived because he was drinking Coca-Cola, and the the fizz in the drink stopped the poison from working, so he just got drowsy and he woke up and there were Russians in the place. He's like, oh, my friends, and they shot him and then threw a grenade into his bedroom. Like, that's how it's going to work out. There are no friends in this world. You have useful idiots, and then eventually an idiot's going to screw the plan, so you got to get rid of him. And I think Trump is increasingly aware of this, because I think one of the reasons Putin might be quiet about this is because he's not quite sure whether his voice helps or hurts in this situation. He doesn't know how to read this out. He thinks Trump's going to lose, and it's better for him to keep his friggin' mouth shut so that he doesn't get more ire from the Democratic side of the field when Harris takes over, because I think he's prepping for that reality.
Well, he's also got some mounting problems at home.
Yes.
He's a little distracted right now.
Sure.
Absolutely. So it's like, besides his own mounting problems, but I think you both are right, Hal and Phil, besides his own mounting problems, I think he definitely, and I think it's a good telltale to see, because of Putin right now, it feels that Trump is probably going to lose and is now taking a less of a step to see where he's going to need to go next because of his own problems that are mounting over there. So I think that's also a good telltale, because, if Putin would believe that Trump was going to win 100%, I think there would be more aggression coming in. There would be more of an attack mode right now. So absolutely. But also you got to understand that the biggest problem we have is Putin already did his job. What he did, what we have in our country, the division that we have, the fact that about half of our country doesn't trust our elections, the fact that we're divided like we were divided in 1950s or 60s, race division, culture division, every division you could think about, we're going through in our country right now. And this was done by the Russian disinformation that was fed through the GOP and Donald Trump. So I mean, Putin has already achieved a big part of that win.
Yeah, because he doesn't want Trump to win. He just wants us to be divided. And Trump is a great chaos agent during that.
Absolutely. They study us. They study us more than they study us and the Brits. The Russians are obsessed with us. They see us. The Anglo-American alliance is their biggest enemy on the globe, is their perception. So they study us meticulously, and they know exactly the pressure points to push on. And so they don't need Trump necessarily. As I said, he's a grenade they threw into the room. And then that started the inertia. And then all they had to do was nudge a little bit here and nudge a little bit, create a protest for BLM against, a KKK protest on the other side of the street, and just let the chips fall where they may. They know exactly.
Well, the Russians are behind both of them. They literally, in a lot of cases, during the 2016 lead up, during Trump itself, even during the last year in office, they funded both sides of it. They literally were paying. We learned that from the tenant media thing. And I have this is a question for Lev too about the people that you had interactions with, because I think ultimately, much like the Iran plan story that we know, where Trump held up this, the plan for Israel to attack Iran, which is, by the way, what everybody was talking about, the leak of what America thinks Israel would do against Hezbollah and Iran if they did it, whatever, is similar to the plan that Trump showed, right? So he's already shown it to somebody. So if it leaked, I'm going to guess it's a maggot that he left behind to do exactly that. But even still, he showed that document to Mark Meadows' autobiographer and the staff around him to kind of, because he had an emotional issue with being, called out by Milley. So he shows this thing. And I think Mark Meadows, because of his closeness, and I think maybe Trump thinks of him as just vanilla wallpaper, that he's just kind of there and he almost ignores. Some people like listening, like yourself. I think you and to some degree Giuliani, when you were around, I think Trump was very choosy with what he might have said in certain times, because he knew your reach and you weren't stupid, and you spoke another language, so that's weird for him because he doesn't understand another language, can't speak it. But Mark Meadows is just kind of milquetoast and can almost invisibly, like Cassidy Hutchinson, stand there and he's like, she's a woman. I can say whatever in front of her. She doesn't fucking matter. And there were certain people he would talk openly in front of almost accidentally because he didn't take them seriously. And it seems like all this information coming up is one of those people. Does that seem to be the case?
Oh no, absolutely. I've been saying that for a long time. That Mark Meadows is his Sammy the Bull Gravano. It's just a matter of I think Mark Meadows has got himself caught up in trying to play the game, and he thought that he was going to be able to somehow sneak his way out of it. Played the game long enough where his deal fell apart, and now he's basically got indicted in Georgia. And because I think he was working on the federal deal with Jack Smith, and he was going to work and testify and give the dirt. And I think you're 100% right, Hal, because Mark is that fly on the wall that was just there at all times. People. He was trusted. He was a trusted guy, but he was just there, and he was Mark. You know what I mean? Like, you're 100% right, and he knows where a lot of the bodies are buried, and he knows a lot. Especially when Trump was leaving, Mark was involved with all of the stuff getting taken out of the
packing everything up, and he left him to organize it, right? And it's a weird window in human beings where there are the utterly forgettable loyalists. They're the active loyalists, I think, like Stephen Miller, Jason Miller, that he engages with, and he picks and chooses his battles with them, and he knows they have a power structure in their own head, and they view themselves as valuable. So I think he doesn't trust that to some degree. But Mark Meadows just kind of is a nobody to Trump. And so therefore, you can just kind of talk in front of him. And I think he made that mistake a lot. More with Mark Meadows almost than anybody else. John Kelly obviously spoke in front of him, but John Kelly's a strong personality, and he's regretted it ever since. I don't think he learned that lesson with Mark.
No, I think with Mark Meadows, the surprise is going to come out after the election. I think Mark Meadows is waiting. Yeah. It's because if Trump wins, Mark's hoping to get a pardon and playing along with that. But as soon as Trump loses, I think Mark Meadows is going to be the first one to go turn in and turn test because he's not going to go do time for Trump. But I think he's just waiting right now to see what happens with that. I think they're all waiting with the elections because, I mean, basically Trump's running, telling everybody, I'm going to pardon all of you. So, I mean, it would be dumb for anybody to go out there right now and do anything. So they're all sticking by his man. But, the one thing about Trump that, it's funny how people still don't realize to this day that loyalty with him goes only one way. It's towards him. You get there's no loyalty coming back. If he were to win, I honestly don't believe he would pardon all of these people. I honestly don't believe he'll pardon all the January 6th people. Not because just because that's Trump. I mean, he just doesn't follow. He doesn't go through with what he promised. He's a liar.
Every year he could promise a commutation or a pardon just to keep them on the line. Just if he's worried they'll get out and start talking, or if they flee the country
he'll pardon a couple. He'll pardon some of the big names. He'll give them a bone. He'll definitely throw them some bone.
Or maybe, the guys that maybe still have dirt on him. Yeah. It's all transactional.
Some of the big mouths that are on social media, people that are, but
Bannon.
There's no, exactly. Well, Bannon, by the time the beauty with Bannon, he has a state trial in New York coming up, so there's nobody that's going to be able to help them. I think Bannon's going to go through some things as he's already done.
Most importantly, he'll pardon himself. He'll pardon himself first and foremost.
Yeah, the legality of that. Yeah, right. He doesn't have to anymore.
That's one of the reasons he got bans. Yeah, I mean, he'll have bans. I mean, they'll play that's the scary part, guys. The scary part is that, we've always, what made America great, what made us so powerful is we have checks and balances. The president was not the king. Even in the office, you had people that had, like, your Secretary of State, your Chief of Staff, your Secretary of Defense, your Attorney General. All of these people might have been chosen by the president, might have been confirmed by Senate, or but all of their loyalty was to our Constitution, to the people, to their job, and to their oath. With Trump, that's all gone away because there's nobody out there today that would work underneath Trump that still has that loyalty. There's nobody Trump would hire in a position that would have true loyalty to him. And that's a scary part, because when you get people like the nuts out there, like the General Flynn's, like the Kash Patels, like Matt Gaetz's of the world, they're going to be put in positions of Attorney General, State Department. That's the problem. Because that Trump doesn't even have to know. They have already their own crazy agendas that they don't need Trump. They don't need him to approve. Once I'm Attorney General, by the time you stop me, I could go turn this world upside down before anybody realizes it.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm saying.
Meanwhile, Trump is out playing golf.
Yeah.
All they need for him is to be the figurehead and just sign his name occasionally and tick off a couple of things. He's not going to be involved. He's going to be out playing golf.
But that's who's around him right now. And that's why Hal said very important is the people that are around him now are all people that are using him for their own, either to grift to make money, either to get into position of power.
Project 2025.
Project 2025. Exactly.
So Project 2025 is an IKEA manual for the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation's like wish list. And basically the idea is that he'll come into work every day, pull 3 pages out of the fucking thing, hand them out, go do that, and then go golf or manage his businesses under the table by making phone calls to Don and Eric all day long.
He won't even have to do that. They'll give it to him just to sign. He won't. He'll wake up. They'll give him the pages. He'll sign, and then he'll go up doing it. And then the beauty of it in his mind that if all of a sudden he gets some bad press or somebody doesn't like something, he'll blame somebody else. He'll say, "Oh, that's not me. That was Kash Patel. He's in charge. He's the secretary of I didn't do that." Like
right.
I mean,
that was what.
It's built-in plausible deniability right off the bat. So it's like,
if the czar only knew.
Yeah, right. Well, and he does that with Roe. So he goes, everybody wanted it gotten rid of. That's his storyline. Everybody wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade because it's very unpopular. It's driving women to the polls and the men that love them. They're all going to vote against him because of this shit. And he knows it. He's hearing everywhere. Like, you're losing all these large groups of voters because of Roe. And his response is, that wasn't my idea. You fuckers told me this was very popular, that everybody wanted this. And it's the same thing he does with, like, he came very highly recommended. He says this very about all the people he picks in his cab. Very highly recommended, which means
not on the way out. Not on the way out.
Right, on the way out. Yeah. On the way in, it's I know the best people.
That had nothing to do with him.
Right. On the way out, these fuckers told me he was awesome. It's not my fault, right? It's classic with him. The same thing is true, I think, of sort of the criminal element around him. Is that and I'm curious about this on more of a personality thing. And like I said, Lev, you would know more about this, and I think Phil, to some degree, your experience with having talked to and around world leaders like this that might read into this. But at a certain point, does the paranoia and the self-involved needle on the meter cross over to the point where even your sycophants and your supporters seem suspect to you? Because it seems to me, as Trump is on his hard fade, he's getting more and more distrustful of, his circle is shrinking. Increasingly, and he doesn't know who to trust. And so the people who are like, you're the best, boss, now make him feel weird. He's very put off by his front row Joes now. It used to be cool, and now they're creeping him the fuck out. And the same thing, I think, there's a version of that with Matt Gaetz. There's a version of that with Kash Patel, who's fucking googly-eyed every time he sees Trump, and he's just kind of, yeah, boss, whatever you want to do, we're going to make it happen. There's a little bit of like, is this fucker going to be one of the people that turns on me later if it fails? Do you see that as much? Yeah.
That's the typical dictator towards the end of his career, mob boss towards the end of his. If you take a look at the way history is written, that's exactly what you just written out. That's what happens to all of them.
Yeah,
because they're so narcissistical. They're so all about that. When they start declining, where the mental decline starts coming in, which we could obviously see Trump is going through, because and that's not. I'm not trying to insult him or make fun of him, but we could see just by his actions,
obvious.
By the way he's talking, comments. Dancing for 39 minutes. You could go on and on and on. This is every day we're starting to watch this. If anybody else besides Trump, you, me, Phil, Kamala Harris, anybody would have had one of those experiences, that's it. We would have been canceled. There would have been nothing going forward. But with him, he's just so basically we're so numb over the years to such craziness that we expected that if Trump were to come out and have just a regular, normal conversation, we would be in shock. The world, because we would not expect that. You don't expect when you put on the TV, it's like WWF wrestling. When you expect something crazy to happen, and if all of a sudden they have a regular match where it's nobody cuts themselves, nobody screams, you're gonna say, "What the hell am I watching?" Like that's not what I tuned into. So you're tuning.
It always has to accelerate. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Lev's 100% right, but he's also right that this is the age-old story. Look at what's happening in the Kremlin right now. The weaker when you establish a cult of personality or a dictatorship based around you as the cult of personality being the center of gravity, once there's a wobble in the things that orbit you and things start. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it only accelerates and gets worse. Chaos starts to spin around this whatever this cult of personality is, whether it's Trump or Putin, and then yes, the paranoia begins, and then all the people who want to seize power see the weakness in the center of gravity, and so they start pecking at one another so they can be lined up to the heir apparent. It gets really, really ugly and messy, and thank God we're stopping Trump before he's actually back in office with a catastrophe of a fall from power like that with Trump inside the White House would be catastrophic. Thank God he's only a candidate. In Russia, he's been in the Kremlin for 20 plus years. There's no way that ends, that self-fulfilling prophecy and that scenario I described is going to end with anything other than blood. So if we don't want to go down the road of the Kremlin, we better stop this guy now and stop him at the ballot box. Because he gets back in the White House, the deterioration is still going to happen. There's still going to be chaos in that White House because he is falling apart.
Yeah, I said this earlier this year when he started. Like, I've been covering his blather. I've done every rally. Lately he's doing so many that and it's the same muscle memory bullshit over and over again that I only cover certain ones that deal with. Oh, we lost Lev for a split second, and he'll pop back in. There he is. It gets tiresome because he's sort of running on muscle memory in these moments. But in his fade, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so in January, when he was doing a couple of these like brain farts that were like Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley and that kind of stuff, people were talking about that and it made news. And I said at the time, this is bad. This is not just him flubbing like normal, where he fucks up and can't say the word illegal, or he says God bless you because his dentures are falling out. This is mental decline from his drug use and his basically homemade Pervitin that's burning a hole in his fucking brain, and it's catching up with him because he's old. And it's just going to get worse. It's never going to get better. Even his moments of lucidity are going to be followed by a major fall off. Like anybody with dementia or Alzheimer's, they might have these moments of lucidity, but those moments of lucidity are followed by worse moments of forgetfulness and anger and outbursts and all that stuff. And that's exactly what's been happening. And between now and the election, it's going to get worse because of the stress and all that stuff on top of it. It's not healthy. It's just bad, right?
And people know it. People know it. I mean, he will not make it through a second term, and I think in their heart of hearts, most people know it.
No, and guys, and the scary part, I mean, I know we were laughing at it, but that day when he was at his own town hall, and when he stopped the town hall, stood for 39 minutes, just swaying back and forth. Yeah, that was serious. I mean, he could not get his thoughts together. He could not, for 39 minutes, he stood there because, believe me, he was trying to get into it. Something happened in his brain that he could not take questions, and you saw him standing there just trying to, because, I mean, he could have left off the stage 5 minutes afterward.
Totally.
He wanted to get in. He stood there wanting to and couldn't get his thoughts together. And that's, I'm telling you, and there's a reason. That's why they're not releasing his medical records. Something is happening with him. Something definitely is happening.
He's either had or is continuing to have ischemic strokes.
Right. And even his conversation, he's becoming more and more that thuggish, like shit, fuck, like, whereas before, but now it's like,
the Arnold Palmer story. I mean,
exactly. Tampon, this guy, and this. I mean, it's becoming where he's becoming more reckless and reckless and you can see it day by day.
My father passed from complications from Alzheimer's. It was cancer, but we didn't know because he had Alzheimer's. But in his later stages of the Alzheimer's, he was not able to. There was no filter. Not that Trump has ever had a filter, but he would just say inappropriate things that were apropos of nothing, to kind of titillate or to get a rise out of people, because I don't know why, but in my father's,
and that's my business model. So
that's how you make your cash. I know, Hal.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry.
That's my living.
But no, my father.
Yes.
I think in my father's case, and I don't know if this stands with Trump as well, but in my father's case, it's because he felt so out of control of the situation because he was never comfortable in the room. He was always lost. So if he could influence an emotional response from somebody else by saying something that he knew would elicit, and it was mostly with the nurses. He was very, very flirty. But he knew that he would elicit a response. That was a control. That was a control. He was able to, he knew that he would get a response. And I kind of see that with Trump.
I mean, very similar to what you're saying, even though it's a very serious subject, and, we tend to laugh at him because of, the ironic things he does, but you could tell even he's asked questions and he just goes off on just says something and tries to get, and looks at the crowd to get a reaction. And sees, if I got a reaction, okay, and then he goes off like, thank you for saying that. Like, all he needs is a couple of people that will agree with him, and he takes it.
I know I'm doing something. I know I'm here. Yeah, I know I'm here. I'm saying something. I'm getting a response. That's something I can hold on to, where I know, because you get very disoriented in certain cases of Alzheimer's, where you just really have no concept of what's happening from minute to minute. So if you get a direct response, you're in the room.
And he's also a mastermind that even though he might be going through that decline, but if he has a room that he'll have 3-4 people support him, he'll turn around and turn it into that half the room is supporting him, and that all of these people are here and that others are not there, and turn that. And that's where he specializes in, is he's able to take a little nothing and turn it into a big something. and turn the whole attention on it and make you sit there, and it's like just think about the fact that this is a guy running for president, all of a sudden getting on the national stage talking about Arnold Palmer's penis. I mean, are you kidding me? Right? Are you fucking kidding me? Sorry for my language, but I don't even know. Like, are you kidding me?
Well, in that particular instance, I also think that there's a couple of things that are going on with him too, because on top of all of his psychological issues and physiological issues that are clear and degrading, there's also an old-fashioned aspect of his own followers require more of the same drug and a higher dose to get the same high they got before. And quite frankly, his 2016 shtick is boring comparatively. So that's also why he has to jack it up and tell dick stories and say bullshit a lot or whatever, those kind of moments, because the crowd just is a different crowd. They've heard it, right? And he's still singing the hits, but he's adding in little flares here and there because people are a little bored with the same old sound in that regard. So there's a perfect storm of both him being a boorish asshole and his mind slipping and him not having a grasp on it. I've noticed this thing, and I'm curious if both of you have noticed it, where he does this thing. There are a couple of points where when he's talking to someone, beyond the thing where he says, picture, think of this, which he says to the crowd, which is like that shitty Jedi mind trick. He also does this thing to whoever he's talking to, you know better than anybody. Right. He'll say that, you know this better than anybody. Right, which has nothing to do, there's no reason why this person would know about the topic he's talking about in particular at all. But he'll do it. It's like when Biden says, not a joke, like it's something you go back to anchor the conversation. But Biden not anchors it on himself, whereas Trump anchors it in the other person as a way to kind of rope them into being his support structure.
It's a sales pitch. It's part of being a salesman. It's like when you're, and that's what Trump is. He's a salesman. So he gets into you by giving you that confidence, saying, "Hey, you guys know what I'm talking about." Most people feel stupid to feel that they don't know what they're talking about. So you're right away getting put because you don't know who he's talking to in general. He's like, and you got other people clapping at and it's one of these mind basically fucks that he does that gets you right away to be on his side, like about when it really doesn't even, you don't even know what the hell he's talking about, but you're it's like that crowd mentality, right?
and no Fox, interviewer is going to admit they don't know what the hell he's talking about in the conversation, either the topic itself in a general sense or even what the hell he said about it. Like, there is no way there are 20 million extra immigrants in the country. The number's close to 10.3. It's lower than 11. It was lower than the number in 2015. That's just the reality. Encounters were up at the border, but it's the same fucking people crossing 5 times. No matter how many times you meet somebody, they don't have twins. That's not how it works. Like, people do not, they're like, hey, I met this guy 5 times. He's got 4 brothers. That's amazing. They all look just like him and they talk like him too. I noticed they're never in the same room at the same time. It's so dumb. But he tells this, not only is he talking shit about these topics, but he'll drag them into this idea that they can't possibly admit, like, I honestly don't know what the shit you're talking about right now, because it means you have to fact check him, which would be the part he's trying to fight off.
The way he does it is basically most people say, okay, what's the difference? 20 million, 10 million. It's a lot of people. He's making it seem, and they give him, like, so he doesn't even, but he won't even, I just saw an interview he did a day or two ago, and they asked him about people eating dogs and cats. Right. He still, to this day, not only did he turn around, they asked him, well, Mr. President, you know that they're not eating dogs. And he goes, I don't know that. He goes, it reminded me of when Rudy was asked, Rudy, you're dealing with Russian assets. He goes, I don't know that. How do you know they're Russian assets? Like this is the same thing. I don't know. How do you know? And then he turns around and he doubles down and he says, well, you know what I heard? I heard that there was a duck disappeared. Yeah, a geese. Yeah, right. Like still, but distracting and saying, so it's like he continues to double, triple down, and it's like the normal human being would think that he's crazy. But then you get people like the Matt Gaetzes of the world that are sitting in Congress and Senate that will go out there and repeat his stories. So now if I'm a normal human being and I'm thinking he has to be crazy, now I'm saying to myself, wait a second. Telling me the same thing there. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but maybe it actually is happening because they all wouldn't lie for him. I mean, they would all go to jail, or they would all, a normal person thinks you'd get in trouble for lying, like if you were a congressman or senator. Well,
I also think there's a turd polishing aspect that goes on with this support structure all the time. They're dealing increasingly with like sloppier, softer turds all the time, and they're all just, Matt Gaetz is out there just spit polishing these turds as best as he can. But increasingly, there's the group of people, like I said, is shrinking, of people that will even bother to go out there. Like, Matt Gaetz is still going to be there. Ron Johnson's still going to be there. But it's everybody with a really tarnished rep. And everybody else, like from Tillerson to Mark Meadows to these people, none of them are racing to find a microphone to defend any of this shit.
Yeah. The other interesting part that you mentioned, you said a couple of times Matt Gaetz, but now you're making me start to think. I haven't heard of Matt Gaetz in the past month after his allegations of his own, the child sex trafficking and Venmo congressional investigation. You don't hear Matt Gaetz lately. And Marjorie Greene also is off the Trump. She got into it with Laura Loomer, and they got into it. So I'm saying to you, there's more cracks. There's more cracks in the because you don't see it, nowadays. I'm watching more and more. He's going out there and doing all of these stuff with cryptocurrency guys, with these crazy, right wing young streamers that are doing all these crazy stunts. And I mean, this is where he's at. I mean, even the Matt Gaetz and the Marjorie Greene of the world. I really don't see anybody. You don't see Lindsey Graham on there really now speaking up on this. You don't see nobody on that.
Well, look what happened to Speaker John. Look what happened to Mike Johnson when he came out and was stuck in the position of having to defend talking about Arnold Palmer's penis to Jay Tapper, and he's like, and I mean, it's just there's nothing good for Johnson to do there, and he's like, Tapper's like, I don't want to be talking about this. The president said this. Why can't you acknowledge it? And Johnson had nowhere to go. Right. So of course nobody's coming out and defending this maniac who's talking about, golfers' junk and just crazy.
There's that alignment though with what you're saying. What you were saying, Lev, about how quiet Putin has gotten. It's interesting that there's a parallel timing wise. I think you can look at the tracks. Matt Gaetz and Marge and some of these folks getting quiet seems to track very well with Putin's silence as well. When he starts coming out and saying shit, they start coming out and saying shit. It's like they get the same marching orders at the same time, and you'll see them repeat Kremlin talking points in these situations. I want to remind everybody before you address that. Lev Parnas has a book called Shadow Diplomacy. You have to check it out. It's on Amazon. Get a copy of it.
Great read.
It's a great read, and it's important because again, there's so many oh my fucking god moments in it that are written out that that are sort of crucial to this. And then Philip Ittner has a podcast called On the Edge that you need to check out as well. This is Hal Sparks Mornings Megaworldwide. On that edge, now that you bring it up, I'm noticing that ebb and flow of messaging seems to be in time, if not coordinated.
Well, one of the things are going to take a look at is once the election and hopefully the Democrats take over, that get back the House, is we could look into some real investigation and follow the money, as I always said. And I'm going to say this, and I said this: there's a lot of money that came into this country, and that was pushed through right-wing media, right-wing congressmen and senators, through lobbyists, and we need to take a look, because if you take a look at the way the propaganda, and just like you said, went up, went down, it was all linked to a much bigger, much more effect, and you got to follow the money trail. And I think that's why these super PACs and the way, that's another major issue that we're not going to get into right now, but is a way of Russia and other foreign adversaries that are infiltrating our country and infiltrating our Congress and Senate. So yes, I hope that after November 5th, because it's not only the Trump-Kamala race, it's very important up and down the ballot. We need to take back the House, the Senate,
absolutely,
and to be able to hold some real hearings and have accountability for these people that, remember, they used Russian disinformation to try to impeach a sitting U.S. president, knowingly, efficiently, and the cover-up is worse than the crime, and we are going to get to the bottom of it, and these people are not going to get away for it. So November 5th is extremely important. Get out and vote. Your life matters, because it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, I agree 100% with what Lev had to say. I also agree that his book is a great read, because in it you get to see just how compromised, and the links between Russia and the Trump campaign, all campaigns, 16, 20, now 24, I'm sure. We do need a full autopsy. When we get Trump in the rearview mirror, we need to know what Russia did to us, and we need to really do a proper investigation. Just I'm in massive jet lag and culture shock, having only just landed, and so much to talk about. We'll bring it up on Saturday. I want to tell you one of the things that I first saw when I landed, but we'll discuss that on Saturday. And just the last thing, Lev, I know you've got friends and family back in Ukraine that you probably speak to regularly, but having just left there, mood is still, high. They're deeply concerned about the outcome of this election, because they know the consequence of it. But Ukrainians are great people, and they believe in us. There's a lot of faith there that we'll do the right thing, and I hope we will, because their future is on the precipice as well, depending on who we elect. So, message from Kiev, Lev. It's alive and well.
Thank you, brother. And Phil, I want to thank you. God bless you. And thank you for all the work and support. I know you basically left your life here and traveled there in the middle of a war zone to be able to fight disinformation and get the information out. So I really appreciate it. God bless you, brother.
Well, I'd love to have you back on. When I'm back, I'll have you back on.
Absolutely. And Hal, you're the man. Keep fighting the fight.
Hey,
I see, I know it's not easy. I'm there with you. Thank you for your support. And, we should do this again after November 5th and have a little celebration time, because the past several years, these podcasts have been so gloom and doom. We've been fighting for. I want to celebrate. I want us to be able to celebrate and have some fun and say it's great, and now talk about some positive things in the future. So that's what I look forward to the next couple of weeks.
It is going to happen. Let me tell you something. He's going to lose, and I think you're right. He's going to lose badly, and I think part of the reason they're poll jacking right now is to make it look like it's close, so they can argue that they won. But it's not going to even be close. And they're going to. I mean, there's so many Republicans that are abandoning ship on him. The female vote is just going to be through the roof. Men who actually give a shit about women's rights outnumber the men who don't. GOPers
who can't stomach him anymore. Why do you think they're doing that with Cheney? me, it's all good. It's all good. We're going to win.
We are, absolutely.
Victory
but everybody's got to vote.
Yeah,
and what we need to do is like to Lev's point, really backfill the House and the Senate. So that turnout has to be extraordinary. Yep. We don't take it for granted because we need people to vote blue no matter who, straight down the ballot, because it's that support structure that will give us the ability to look into these things. And I want to remind everybody, Lev Parnas' book is a fantastic read. And you also have to check out from Russia with Lev, the documentary that Rachel did, which is kind of like a primer to the book in some ways.
I can watch it. I'm going to watch it, Lev.
There you go. That's right. And then Philip Ittner has On the Edge, and of course he'll be with us on the radio on Saturday, live from Michigan and stuff. I'm so excited you guys could come on today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I'm so excited about this election. And I look forward. I'm doing an all-night live stream, 24 hours, noon to noon, from on election day to the next day, like I did last time, to prove to everybody I'll be awake with everybody while we're winning. And if you guys want to drop in at any point during that, I would love to have you guys come on for a couple of minutes and say hi. We'll make that happen.
Send me a link, Hal, and I'll try to come out. Definitely, I will come out with something.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll let you guys go. Thanks for being on here. Appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks,
all right. Thanks. There they go.
Bye.
Awesome. There goes Lev. There goes Philip. What a great show this morning. And the major in the first hour, fresh back from his trip to Europe. A great conversation there. Andrea, thank you for helping work that out. Again, big round of applause for her coordinating that in the middle of, like, I think you're using Starbucks internet, or using the CVS's internet to be able to coordinate stuff. Just really appreciate it. And thank you, by the way, before I go, chat room. Thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to share the show, like, subscribe, etc., etc. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you guys this afternoon for the afternoon show again, drinking from the friggin' fire hose of news. There's plenty of stuff to cover. There will always be too much, but I will do my best to kind of get to the essential ones so people can see the arguments that are being made and we can dissect them for real, as opposed to, definitely not believe me, I'm looking forward to the next giggle fit when Trump is losing, his fucking mind and says something, stupid about Arnold Palmer's swizzle stick. But the primary thing will be giving you guys arguments in the last couple of weeks right before the election that if anybody pushes back online, you've got something to push back with on your own, and do it with some humor and aplomb and joy and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, I was so lucky that that while we were doing the show today, that the kidney didn't occur while.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
Okay. I'm glad that didn't happen during the show, because that would be so embarrassing. Give it up, Twitch people. Look at that. Look at the emojis. All right, why are my credits not rolling? Hold on, I hit it again. Hopefully they'll roll. Thank you guys for the super chats. Thanks to our Patreon subscribers. Thanks for allowing me the chance to entertain and inform you with my guests, helping make that happen as well. I adore you, and unlike Tim Pool, can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Look out. Everybody having a good time.
We've got entirely too many troublemakers here.
Beef jerky?
No, son, thank you very much. No, it gives me the wind, something terrible.
Oh.
Groovy.
You are physically repulsive, intellectually retarded, vulgar, insensitive, selfish, stupid. You have no taste, a lousy sense of humor, and you smell.
Geez, you're real nice. If I didn't have puke breath,